working.
Oh, it is, but take. Just how it is. Okay. See what I mean? It's live, but welcome to Herf's Zone Live, the show where we have the most eclectic lineup of guests, of which some smoke cigars and some who don't. Either way, we bring you the best content weekly. Herf's Zone Live is sponsored by StogieLives.com, a social media site just for cigar smokers. Sign up for free and connect with cigar lovers from all over the world. Set up with similar features to Facebook and sites. You can grow your network, start groups, post events, and see why everyone is talking about lives.com. Make sure to connect with Team Shirtless Mike and Herf Zone Live and tell me you came because of cigars and Stogie Press. They are working to raise money for a daycare center in Jalapa, Nicaragua. Workers in the cigar industry, among helping in other ways. As you know, Nicaragua has a lot of poverty, and in Jalapa, there is massive amounts of need. This is where a lot of cigars are produced. So I'm getting behind this along with others in the cigar industry to make a difference. The link to the Stogie Press article is in the show description. You can learn more about the project and make a donation by clicking the link in the description. Together, we can achieve more. Tell a friend to tell a friend. All right. So I do apologize. It's RAM on my computer. So if it keeps going gargling once I actually to start the show with Greg. He is waiting in the green room. But before I get this whole show started, I wanted to introduce my Pops. He's hanging out. He's in town from Washington. So he's hanging out while I do the show. They'll be able to hear if you want to say what's up.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
So go ahead and, I got him out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and light this cigar. What I'm going to be smoking tonight is the Midnight Bender, and it is by Fuerte Y Libre Cigars. My dad's going to get out of the way because he's not a cigar smoker. And that way it doesn't hit him with, it doesn't hit him too crazy. All right. So waiting in the green room is a very special guest tonight. He was supposed to be on next week, but Matt Booth wanted to do a little switcheroo. And so since it's better for him to not have to follow Matt Booth, then we have Mr. Greg Free from Fuerte Libre Cigars, is the owner of this wonderful cigar brand. And we'll bring him on so that the stream stops doing this because how it's been. So yeah, let's bring on Greg Free of Fuerte Libre Cigars.
What's going on, just sitting brother? Here enjoying the country air in North Carolina.
Yes, definitely. So I got your message when I started the show. Until I get a computer, until I get something with more RAM, I'm gonna have to borrow a computer because it does that in the very beginning. But once I bring the person on, everything works smoothly suddenly. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, So how's everything been? You've been working and being on the road today, and hit a few cigar shops, right?
Yeah. So, we got cigars in the country in 2019, to go back in time a little bit, in May. So we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. I had a full-time job for 35 years. I left that full-time job about 4 weeks ago and went full-time in the cigar business. So every other week since then, I've been traveling. So we're on a 12-day trip, 20 shops in 12 days.
Nice, nice. So it's basically like you're going on tour. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to get started with the interview. So Greg, tell me about how you got into cigars. Give me a brief history of how you got into smoking cigars, and how long have you been smoking cigars?
So I bought a house next to what was declared to be a beautiful wetlands area. And this is in 1992. And my neighbor noticed I was never outside. And he goes, why are you never outside? And I said, well, the mosquitoes are terrible. That's not a wetlands, that's a swamp. So he said, you should smoke a cigar. So he handed me a Baccarat, because that's what he smoked. I lit up the Baccarat. I smoked Baccarats for 3 years. Didn't even know there were other cigars, because it's what he gave me. So
yeah,
I started smoking back then in 92, and I don't know how many years that is. It seems like an awful lot. I still don't know everything about them, but I still enjoy them just as much.
Nice, definitely. And so you just said that was the next question too. So you just quit your day job, or retired, or whatever you want to call it, 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so how did you get to the point where you can work the brand full time, and what type of work did you do outside of cigars?
So I was in government contracting. I'm based out of Centerville, Virginia, which is just outside DC. I grew up on a farm and really thought I was going to be a farmer. I went to college for horticulture, but then I needed health insurance. And so I found myself wearing a suit for 35 years, trying to get back to the farm. So I went, after doing this for 2 years, and then, COVID was in the middle of that. I really couldn't dedicate the time to it to just make it happen. And I didn't retire. I'm relatively young, 54 years old. I'll be 55 this year. But this is my passion. And my wife, she hasn't pushed me towards my passion, but she's allowed me and guided me and encouraged me to pursue it. She's been really influential in many, many ways. And when this moment in time came to transition to go full time, I'm sure you've talked to cigar companies, and they'll let you know, the people that own them, that this isn't a place where you go to make money. I mean, it's just, this isn't going to replace what I left. I don't have any illusions that that's going to occur. But I do have the illusion that I can create a brand that people will be drawn to, and that they'll enjoy my cigars, and that my wife will keep making enough money to make the house payment. Nice.
And I'm sure you heard what they say. If you want to make a small fortune in cigars, start with a small fortune.
I heard
a large fortune, start with a small fortune.
I've heard that one. And then recently in a shop in Dayton, someone told me that in the cigar business, you can either lose a lot of money really fast, or you can make a little bit of money really slow.
Yeah, I never heard that. It's the same thing with being a cigar influencer. They say all we do is get free stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm. But eventually,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, we're kind of in the same place, Mike. You're starting something that's following your passion, and you're doing this with. There's no guarantee of any real reward other than, you're sharing your knowledge and love for cigars. And I'm doing the same thing, sharing my knowledge and love for cigars. There's no guarantee that this is going to be great, but I'm having a blast, really having a blast.
That's what it's all about. So when did you get the idea to start a cigar brand? Give us the rundown of how you came up with the name Fuerte Y Libre and the process of starting a cigar brand.
So I started a cigar brand at the worst possible time in the history of our government. And it was actually in 2012. I was sitting in my garage in the cold in the winter in Virginia, freezing, but smoking a cigar because I just love smoking cigars. And my wife came out and she sat next to me for a while, and she said, "What are you ever going to do with your passion for cigars?" And I said, "I always thought about starting a brand," because I had been thinking about it for 10 years. And she said, "Well, what have you done to that end?" And I said, "Well, I always thought about starting a brand." And she said, "That's not a really good plan." So she said, "Why don't we start putting a little bit of money aside in a separate account just for the company? And then when you're ready, we'll have the money there and you'll be capitalized and you can start the company. So started putting money away in 2012, started working on branding and trademarking in 2013. The brand name came before the logo of the bull. The brand name is Fuerte Y Libre, strong and free. I like strong cigars. My last name is Free. But I wanted it to be Spanish, but I also wanted to have an American meaning, and strong and free, really symbolizes America. So you've got this combination of a Spanish name, my last name thrown in there, but it works because I love strong cigars. The bull the bull came after that. So I was raised on a farm in Frederick County, Maryland. My dad was a horse trader. He actually bought and sold horses. He made a living doing that for decades. But I worked on a dairy farm, and I was in the Future Farmers of America. And I rode in the local rodeo, the county rodeos, and I did all the typical rodeo things, worked my way up to bronco riding, riding bucking horses. And I did that for a year and a half. At this point, I'm a senior in high school, and all the chicks want to go hang out with the bull riders. And I thought, well, I've been riding broncos for a year and a half. This should be easy breezy. Hopped on 8 bulls, realized immediately that broncos like to run away from you when they throw you off. Bulls like to come and kill you. And after 8 bulls, I said, no more. The girls are not that important to me. I'd really like to live. So stopped riding bulls. So the bull emblem really symbolized strength, and the American symbol of strength being strong and free, and the fact that they're out there on their own in the field. It doesn't hurt that I'm also a tourist and that I rode bulls. So that's kind of how that all came together. And it, and a lot of it was just spitballing ideas amongst my core crew of smoking buddies. You sit in a lounge all the time. You've got this regular crew you hang out with. You know them. Mm-hmm. You trust them. I showed a bunch of different bull logos. We went through probably 15 of them before we finalized, kind of solidified on this one because it was the most simplistic and would really stand out. And then we started just adjusting it slightly to make it what it is today.
Nice. And so you got 5 brands currently underneath the umbrella. You got the Bodacious, the Bushwhacker, Midnight Bender, Sun Country, and Second Wind. We're going to talk about those next, but your cigars are made in the Dominican Republic. Why did you choose the Dominican Republic to produce your cigars?
So I have a history of family vacations, always having a failure in the middle of them. And whatever we don't get to do that was on the schedule, there's always something better behind it. And my cigar factory story is very similar. We started working with a factory in the Dominican Republic, but really wanted the access of tobacco available in Nicaragua. So we planned to produce cigars in Nicaragua. We actually had a trip planned. It was going to be a family vacation. We had a beach house. My oldest son and I were going to go visit 3 factories in Esteli in the middle of that vacation. But this was June of 2018. We had our flights booked. 2 weeks before we left, the country kind of fell apart. The riots in the streets, people were getting shot, the airport was being closed. So we immediately changed the family vacation and then booked a trip back to the DR where we had been. And we had been going to the DR twice a year to visit the factory. So we went back to the factory. We started working on those finalized blends because we had been working on some already. And the reason we chose that specific factory in the very beginning was threefold. One is it's a small factory. I didn't want to be a small fish in a big sea. I wanted to have influence on what was happening. I wanted someone who would grow with me. We're both small businesses. We could both be deeply invested in the process and make sure that things were moving in a positive direction for both of us. The second reason was the factory has a familial relationship with a 40-hectare tobacco farm. That 40-acre farm is run very well. I'm a farmer. I come from that background. I've raised a lot of crops. I understand crop rotation. I understand chemicals. But that farm is they don't use chemicals. They don't use artificial fertilizers. They rotate 3 crops through the field a year. The tobacco in the Dominican is only grown for 3 months in the field, but they rotate yucca and potatoes. So they're putting all that nitrogen back in the soil. So when I saw what they were doing, I thought, this is great. And then I wanted to understand that relationship. So that farm for 40 years, since 1978, when the factory was started, they have a relationship where that farm guarantees that they won't sell that tobacco to anybody else. And the factory guarantees that they'll buy it all, whether they can make cigars out of it or not. So what that gave me was the small factory, but without the inconsistent product that sometimes you get from small factories, because a lot of small factories are just going to the warehouse and picking what's good that day. They don't know what farm it came from. They don't know what part of the Cibao Valley it was in. They don't know what the weather's like in that particular section. But with me, when you smoke a Bodacious, that cigar is all the tobacco comes from that one farm. So even the Ecuadorian seed is grown in the Dominican Republic, comes from that one farm. And so when you smoke a Bodacious 2 years after they came out, it's going to be the same cigar, that nice consistency. So that's how we got to choosing the factory. It's been a great relationship. It's a very small factory called El Hoyito. The only disadvantage they have is that they're not in a tax-free zone. So the availability of tobacco that's not Dominican or not grown in the Dominican is a little bit more expensive for me. So when you see San Andreas, like in the Midnight Bender you're going to smoke, that costs me a 20% premium. But this has just been a great relationship. They've been able to improve the factory. They've improved their product lines. We're their first American brand. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to do together.
Yeah, definitely. And, a lot of times you see like a brand that's as small as yourself that they just kind of like, they'll get samples and they don't even go over there, but you got that farming background. So you're very hands-on and everything. Now, last year, once, the heart of COVID hit and everything, it kind of, how did that all work out? I know you were still, working your regular job, but like, was things shut down for a while at the factory that you deal with and all that? Like what was kind of like that process like for you?
Well, first I'd like to say these are great questions. And I really appreciate you digging into the details because it was a tough year for everybody. I know a lot of cigar lines are still trying to catch up. The good news is I was small enough and my factory was small enough and nimble enough, being small, that they could accommodate almost everything that was thrown at us. So the things that changed are the factory was closed for 2 months in May, June of last year. And that was really, it wasn't mandated by the government, but the whole tobacco industry kind of decided, look, this is what we've got to do. We got to figure it out. So they shut the factory down. They continued to pay their employees and everyone was taken care of, which was great. The other thing that changed is we visit the Dominican Republic twice a year. We visit in February, late February, when the tobacco is high in the field. And then we visit again in October. So we went in February right before COVID hit, but we canceled our October trip because of COVID. It was just the country was too tight. It was really harder for us to get back in the U.S. than to get there. Yeah. It was just risk that we couldn't do. So we didn't get to visit the farm last year, which is a detriment to me because honestly, that's the heart of it for me is the farm. So visiting the farm is really important. In October, then we're looking at that tobacco that we saw being picked and dried in the barns in the field. We go to the warehouse and then we start testing that tobacco at 6 months. So we've got that 6 months of age on it. We can kind of see what's happening and make sure that we're headed in the right direction for that consistent product. So those were the two main things that changed. And I couldn't go visit stores. I mean, I basically stopped growing the company. And when your stores in Virginia are doing pickup service, if you don't know Fuerte Y Libre, and let's face it, 99.9% of America has never heard of us, you're not going to call the store and say, hey, I'm going to pick up an order. Get me some of those Fuerte Y Libres. So there's no way that I was going to grow during that time. So we spent the time creating new blends, working more on the packaging, working more on shipping and building the baseline of the company behind the scenes.
Yeah. And then you basically lay down the foundation so that you're able to leave your full time to do this full time, which it's amazing, man. I'm definitely proud of you. And I knew you before, online before you even started Fuerte Y Libre. Like, you're just a C2 guy and, just to see that growth. But you also knew me before I was like well known in the cigar world too. So it's pretty cool to see each other's growth right there. So, so give us the rundown of your blends and what time of the day do you recommend each cigar? I kind of know because, I know about cigars, but just on your recommendation, if somebody out there was unsure, like what would you tell them of what time of the day to smoke each of your cigars?
Well, that's another interesting question. I don't know that I've thought through the answer, but I can tell you what I smoke and when I smoke it. The Sun Country. Let me run through the blends first. So Bodacious was first, and all of the cigars are named after famous bulls. And most of them were famous back when I was riding bulls. I wasn't in PBR. I was just a little fair cowboy. But we all knew who the bulls were. I mean, when you're a cowboy, like, that stuff. You watch PBR on TV every weekend. So Bodacious was a famous bull that no one could ride. That blend I didn't create. I didn't know anything about the cigar business. I couldn't have blended a cigar any more than I could make, the best chocolate chip cookies in America. So I counted on the factory. They came out with 12 different blends that spoke to what I was telling them I wanted. but they created the blends. We tested all 12 in a group of 12 people over 4 days. 11 out of the 12 people picked their favorite, and that was the Bodacious with the Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. I was the 12th person. It wasn't my favorite. It was a good cigar, but I had another favorite. So I took that same blend and I tested it. I tested the core of it with an Ecuadorian Maduro wrapper to bring a little bit more earth to it. And so we came out with those two wrappers, the Ecuadorian Maduro, Ecuadorian Habano. Both of those are one farm cigars. Everything comes from the farm, the same farm. The second blend, I started picking the filler tobacco. So I actually went to the pylons in the warehouse. I chose the tobacco I wanted to use for the filler. It had a little more age than the Bodacious had. So they've got a little bit more of a subtle nuance instead of like the ripe flavors that you get in the Bodacious. And I was doing that because I was trying to get that richer profile. And those are Dominican in the filler, Dominican binder, and then there's an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. And then on the flip side, there's a Mexican San Andres wrapper. So I'm trying to tiptoe into strong cigars because that's what I want. I mean, I want the market to buy my stuff, but what I really want is a cigar that speaks to me.
Yeah.
So the next one we came out with was Midnight Bender. Midnight Bender is actually the son of Bodacious the bull. He was another famous bull. And by the way, we choose all of our bull names. And you're smoking that. We choose all of our bull names when we're drunk at a cigar lounge in Santiago. Like that's just our history. So we'll sit in one of the cigar lounges in Santiago. There's a couple really good ones, and drink. And then someone will pull up their phone with famous bull names and just start reading them off. And that's how Midnight Bender came up. So Midnight Bender's got a Mexican San Andres wrapper. It's got a double Dominican Ligero in the core. So it's a medium bodied smoke because it smokes so smooth, but it's really full strength. It's got a good bit of nicotine in it. And for me, that was a blend that I created from scratch. So I picked the filler, I picked the Ligero, I picked the binder, I picked the San Andres wrapper. So that was my first real blend. The next one was Sun Country, which is the yellow band, which I think is our most unique our most unique cigar. So that blend is doing something that I don't think anybody else is doing. And I'm sure someone will call me out on it if they are, but it's an Ecuadorian Connecticut shade wrapper around a full bodied core. So the core of that cigar is double Dominican Ligero. And then in the Pelado Cubano filler, the Dominican filler, we blended Mexican San Andres wrapper leaf in the filler. And then there's a Dominican binder. And then, of course, that Connecticut shade wrapper that's grown on the farm. So it's a full-bodied core. It's a full-strength core. You've got a lot of nicotine. A lot of people smoke that cigar and they'll get the cold sweats. Like they're just not expecting it to be there. Because when you smoke it, it smokes like a very medium cigar. And then the fifth one is Second Wind. That'll be our second anniversary cigar. It's going to be released on the 20th. It's the last weekend in May on the Saturday. I think it's the 28th or 29th. I have to check my calendar. But that's our second anniversary. So we released our first cigar Bodacious 2 years ago in May. So it'll come out then. That's a double Ligero in the core and a Dominican, an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. So that's the five lines. And the second question about what time of day, that Sun Country is amazing with coffee.
Yeah, now, I did that today. Before you go any further, I did that today, and it was really awesome. Like it's really good with coffee. It's something it's medium body, so it's not like super mild or whatever, but it's a good start of the day cigar. And I wasn't blending for a coffee cigar, but it's fantastic with coffee. But I find myself, even though I blended the Midnight Bender to kind of speak to my palate, I find myself smoking the Sun Country most of the time. And so it's not any time of day is really perfect for that cigar, in my opinion. It goes really well with, I drink bourbon. Sometimes I drink scotch, but mostly bourbon, mostly lower proof bourbons, 90 proof or lower. So it's not going to overwhelm the cigar. And it goes really well with those things. And it's got enough nicotine that it can carry kind of any time of day. The Midnight Bender, I very rarely wake up in the morning and smoke a Midnight Bender. It's just, it's a little more, you build up to it. It's still smooth, but it's just got a little bit more meat to it. And that's more of an evening cigar. That's more of a Scotch cigar for me. Because, Scotch, I enjoy the Isla Scotches that are very smoky and peaty. And that cigar can really hold up to them. It's got a lot of strength that can hold up to them. And then today, I started my day with a Bushwhacker Habano Torpedo.
which was delicious with coffee as well, and I really enjoyed it. My next cigar was the Bushwhacker with the San Andreas wrapper. So that's kind of a step down from the Midnight Bender, but a step up from the same one in the Ecuadorian Havana wrapper. So it just kind of stepped through my day. And then my next cigar, I had a Sun Country. So here I am, I'm at my first shop near Raleigh, and I'm smoking a Sun Country, and so is the owner of that shop, and we're both really enjoying it. At that point, we're talking about 11 a.m. this morning. So I know I shouldn't be on my third cigar at that point, but I'm working.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is what it is. And actually today, the job that I was working or whatever, I basically, if you don't get a certain, like if you start falling off with your sales, they'll basically start sending you home and stuff like that. And they did that yesterday, and I was like, I need to find something that they're not so abusive. It's not abusive, but I ended up quitting this morning. I went in there and I just talked to my supervisor, like, look, it's not you, it's not it's just me, kind of like a bad breakup, and so I started smoking cigars early this morning. I was hanging out at a shop, and I was on my third cigar by like 11 a.m. as well. So I understand that.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm trying to do something with the dogs.
Oh yeah, no worries. I love dogs on Herfstone Live. Very dog friendly.
These dogs, I think they're called Beershans. They're huge. They're like 80 pounds, and they're gigantic farm dogs. They're supposed to protect the animals. So when it gets dark, they just start barking and going crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh, King Tuck, Big Tuck says, "What's up?"
All right,
brother Tuck. No, that's a good brother of the leaf right there. So yeah, just continuing on with this here. So, but we originally, like I mentioned earlier, we originally met on Cigar Cartel way before you started Fuerte Libre Cigars. How did being part of C2 impact you as you began your journey?
So it presented me a complete cross section all the way across the country, actually around the world, of what people were smoking, what they were enjoying, what they were pairing cigars with. Really just kind of getting into their lives. And some people, were a lot more vocal on C2. And so I, developed these online relationships, like people like you or Melvin Tucker or, a lot of the players in the Pirate Crew. I was in the Pirate Crew for a while, and a chapter leader. So I would do some events in my area to bring people together to smoke cigars. So it was really just, it made me even more passionate about getting into the business. And it connected me with so many great people in the industry, but also just smokers, people that just enjoy the leaf.
Absolutely. And so you're on the road right now, you're visiting shops and pushing the brand. So what has been the reception been like so far? Your newer brand, sometimes it might not be it could be, really great, but, just what's kind of the general consensus of what's that been like so far?
It's brand new to me. I wouldn't call myself a salesperson. And what I do on shop visits is I'm calling in advance, letting them know I'm going to be there. It's not a surprise. If it's far enough in the future, I'll send a sampler in the mail, but I usually like to just show up with a sampler, have a time set aside, smoke cigars. And being a new brand it's not easy. I've learned a lot from watching the other newer brands grow. I learned a lot from Omar DeFrias at Fratello. And I learned a lot by sending him questions that he would help me with in the very beginning. Just a great guy. And to him, it's not a competition. We're all in this together against the government for the most part. So, learning that part of the business was really important. But these shop visits, I get a feel when I'm at a shop. Are they really interested? Is it something they're willing to do? Most shops, the humidors are full. You want to go in a shop where the humidor is full. And here you've got a brand that doesn't have any brand recognition. So what I sell them is that I'm willing to go there. I'm invested in showing up at the shop and doing an event. And in fact, I don't really want to be in a shop right now that I can't go do an event. One of my newest shops is on this journey. We're doing North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. And we picked up a shop in Johnson City, Tennessee. It's at Libation Station. It's called the Lajero Lounge. That's relatively new, really nice. We got our cigars in there because of people that I knew that were already buying the cigars from the shops we were in. And they said, look, we still want to support the shops up in Virginia, but we'd love to have them in our shop down here. So they, that's the reason I contacted that shop. So they were already kind of interested. They picked up the brands, so they're carrying them now. And for the most part, it's a struggle, to be honest. It's hard. It's a new brand. So our goal is to get in one shop per week through December. If we can do that, then I can actually break even and not have to put any more money in the company. Because at this point, we're still investing. We're still putting money in, and it's not cheap, but it's a dream. Dreams aren't cheap. So we're walking through the process. We visited 3 shops today, and that's a big day. And we're excited to come back and do this show and close it out on a high note. One of those shops, very receptive, very positive. We had a really good time there. I have a good feeling about it. The other 2 shops, we'll see. Sometimes you just don't know. But we've gotten in a couple really good shops since I went full time. One of them is in Dayton, Ohio. It's called B&G's Lounge. It's 6,000 square feet. They're finishing it little by little. They bought this huge building, and the way they're doing it is just perfect. They haven't had it for very long, but just a really great crew of guys. We were in there on a Thursday. There were 45 people there. The shop is not in Dayton proper. It's south of Dayton. But they've already created this energy around that shop where it's just really exciting to be a part of it. And that's what I'm excited about. I continue, if I can get in one shop a week and have that level of excitement and interest, I'll just keep pushing forward.
That's what it's all about, man, for sure. So what's your favorite part of being on the road, and what's your least favorite part?
The best thing about this job is I would be doing this anyway. If I was retired, let's say, I would be going to a shop and hanging out and smoking a cigar with people I've never met before and having a solid conversation. I mean, that's the dream. You do a job, you do something you love. My grandmother always said, you do something you love, the money will come. But I'm not really concerned about the money. I just really enjoy it. I'm passionate about just the conversation, not even talking about the company, but just meeting someone new and having that dialogue over a cigar and enjoying the time. The part I don't like is I don't like visiting a shop where you've set up the appointment, you had a good conversation, you sent them a sampler, or you bring them a sampler, and they haven't made the right amount of time for you. They're just too busy. They've got too much going on. They don't have an extra person to work. So you've driven 150 miles to get there, and you didn't really get a chance. So that's the part that's a little bit rough, but it's a numbers game. Any kind of sales is a numbers game. You're in it right now. Anything. It's all about, it's all about numbers. And what we've been doing is getting in 1 out of every 5 shops we visit. So that means I just got to, struggle through 4 that aren't interested, and I'm okay with that. And then, you get the 1, and then that pumps me up. And then I go through another 5 shops and I get the 1, and then that pumps me up. So all in all, it's great. And, that's probably the only thing. I think, for the most part, shop owners are just like me. They're just trying to make a living doing something they love.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you kind of have a rough estimate of how many shops you've gotten into so far? Like, not necessarily like just within your tour, but just, prior to that, just since you've, got your cigar out there.
So we're in 15 shops right now. We have 3 that we're getting ready to close that are writing their orders now. So that'll be 18 shops. We're small, we're a small company. If we keep doing this till the end of the year, so, we're looking at April, we got 9 months, there's 4 weeks in a month. So we plan on being in another 36 shops. The goal is to be at 50 by the end of the year. So if we can get to 50, that's really the solid place to be. And then it becomes easier to sell, because now they go to my website and look at my retailer page, and they see dots kind of everywhere. And then they start seeing more momentum on the social media, more momentum on the sales. We're not going to be coming out with new lines, every 3 months. That's just not the style that I want to be. We want to really focus on putting out a quality product that's consistent across all the lines. And we don't need, at this point in our size, we don't need 15 facings. We need 5, and that's really plenty.
Solid lineups. You have something for every palate, and that's the most important part. Because there's some brands, they just will have like all mild or all medium or all really full body. You need something for every palate, because if one doesn't hit somebody, you're going to get somebody who's going to enjoy something else, and so on and so forth. So you're definitely off to a great start with that and all that. So what advice would you give a brand owner trying to start their brand and get it out there?
Wow. There's not a book. And because I started in the middle of so much transition in federal regulation, it was really, really hard. Mainly just dealing on the federal side. So the advice I would give is to find someone who's in the industry, and that person could be me because I had people help me. I would pay that forward. Find someone who's gone through the hoops. Don't think you know everything. I mean, I got to the point where I had cigars ready to come in 2018, and I had one more hoop to cross, which was getting a surety bond for the customs duties. Just a little thing. But there was no
Yeah.
book that told me I even needed that. And so then at the last minute, I'm jumping through more hoops. So talk to someone who's been through it. It's not that complicated, but you can't do everything at the same time. You've got to do it step by step. Some things you have to do before you can even start the other things. So it's a process. And like I said, we started in 2013. We didn't get cigars until 2019. And we went through this phase where, FDA said we had to have cancer labels on all our boxes. So, and you got to send them pictures of what the labels are going to look like on the box. And we did all that. And then they changed the rule. Now we don't have to have cancer labels. So that's just one example of what was changing while we were going through the process. So be passionate about it. Don't get in it for money. Trust the people that have been through the process before to help you, because they will. There's plenty of them. I mentioned Omar, but Sam Leccia also was very helpful and also an inspiration to me in what he did, when he started with Oliva doing the nub cigars and then moving on to his own product with Sam Leccia. But just, and believe in yourself. You just have to, and you can't count on the money. It's probably not going to happen, but it is so much fun getting out there and talking to people. Like, if that's who you are, this is easy, except for the federal side.
Yeah, definitely. I like Jeff Borshowitz says. I've heard him say, like, you kind of got to eat shit for 10 years before stuff really takes off.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider that. I took that advice, and it's with me being a cigar personality. Even though it's kind of taken shape in many forms. I've already been doing it a couple years, so I got 8 more years to go of eating shit.
But it's all on how you take the shit. I just let things roll off my back that I can't control. If I can't control it, I'm not going to let it bother me. It's not going to be a big thing to me. But yeah, there's some things that it's tough, and we all fight through it. We struggle through it. And it's not just in work. It's raising a family and buying houses and all the other things we do.
Boom, John. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Sorry, but he said, "I love these cigars."
That's awesome, and that makes it worth it. Every time you've got someone who gives you a comment like that online, or they're smoking your stick and they post a picture on their Facebook. Yeah. I mean, I endeavor to comment on everybody. If they don't tag me, sometimes I may not find it and see it. But if someone tags me, you'll notice that it means the world to me to have someone say something positive about my cigar, or say that they're relaxing with a good cigar and it's mine that they're holding. I mean, that's powerful. Huge impact.
And before I move on here, so Joey Free said, "How's the Midnight Bender shirtless Mike?" And I'm like, well, it's an awesome cigar, and I'm smoking through it, trying to smoke through it slowly and not trying to rush it. And it's awesome. And once again, Tuck says, "Love you both. Love you too, Tuck." So yeah, we got a lot more to cover before we even get to the fun questions. This has been fun, in general so far. So outside of cigars, what do you like to do for fun?
I do like to watch a good movie with my wife. She forced me to build a cigar lounge in the house, and it's got a big TV in there. So we'll sit in there and watch a good movie. We pick every other one, and that's kind of a fun time for me. I enjoy walking my dog. It's actually my wife's dog. It's a German Shepherd, and just going out with a cigar and walking the dog. That's fun. I love country music, so I listen to a lot of that. But I like music really across the board, and I'm a big fan of comedy. So comedy routines or comedy movies, or anything that will make me laugh and make the world a lighter place.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so outside of your own brand, on the rare occasion that you have some personal smoking time, what are some of your favorite cigars?
It's relatively easy for me, although I'm my own worst customer because I smoke across the board. Right now it's research, and I write it off as such, so I can kind of smoke anything I want and write it off to the company because I've got to test the stuff that's out there. But I really fell in love with the original Fratello series. The the Boxer, the Bianco, some of the first ones that came out really kind of hit my palate just the right way. Nice dark wrappers, oily, just really full of flavor, and Dominican. I smoke a bit of La Aroma de Cubas. I enjoy those. The Sam Leccia White. I don't even know if I can find that anywhere, but I've got 2 boxes that I still every once in a while will pull out. I used to smoke Gordos, and I've got a couple of boxes of Gordos of those.
Now you're gonna have people hitting you up because those are pretty rare. In Boston, Jimmy actually found a single at Executive. It was like kind of behind like the shelf or whatever, like in the humidor, and he found one that the cellophane was just really yellow and it was pretty awesome. So he managed to find that and he smoked the shit out of it. So yeah, so please do not barrage Mr. Free with all these requests. You know, I mean, he might decide to share, but don't barrage him or harass him or try to bribe him. Before we go on here, I did have a question. So my boy Dominic Gemelli, fellow Paisan, he said, any retailers that ship, nothing near me on the map. So I'm sure you have a few retailers that may ship. I know you don't want to show preference to one over the other, but if you can kind of mention a few just to kind of make it a little more fair.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, some retailers, that's not part of their system. Like, they don't do a lot of shipping. They're doing more during COVID. But one shop that has consistently shipped and will put together samplers and packages and, you know, box prices that are decent is Tobacology. It's my home shop. Tobacology is in Manassas and Haymarket, but it's out of the Manassas shop that they do most of their shipping. Some of the other new shops, I'm not familiar with what they do from a shipping perspective. So I'm not really, I'm not eliminating anybody else from the possibility.
Yeah.
Out of the 15 shops, but Tobacology has always been really good. As my home shop, he was also a mentor and a guide from the retail side, teaching me, how to handle that part of the business. And he will be the shop that we release the second wind in at the end of May.
Awesome. So, what are you when you are smoking for pleasure and you got the music playing on a nice day? What are you listening to?
So I have a Pandora music station that it's labeled Zac Brown Band radio, but you can add other artists to it. And I added some old country artists, Hank Williams Jr., Johnny Paycheck, Johnny Cash. So it winds up being this blend of stuff. I was raised on a farm. We only had country music stations. So a lot of that old classic country will come up on there. And then also some Zac Brown Band radio stuff. It's actually becoming less and less Zac Brown Band playing on that station, but it's still that same flavor of music. So you get a lot of artists. So for the most part, I listen to that, or I listen to, there's a Latin workout channel on Pandora that it plays Latin music, but of a higher beat. So when you're working out, you've got kind of this pump up music that's all Latin.
Yeah, nice.
It's a little bit like on Sirius, you've got who's the bald guy that's Latin? He's very famous singer. He's a DJ, really. What is his name? Anyway, it's a little bit like that.
Pitbull.
Yeah, Pitbull.
Yeah, but Pitbull's not a DJ. He does like world music or whatever. Mm-hmm. And actually, I used to listen to Pitbull when I was in high school because he used to be like a hardcore rapper. Mm-hmm. Like hardcore. Like if you type in Pitbull Miami album, it's completely different from how his music sounds. Like people say he sold out, but he really just went where the money's at. He still kind of raps, but he kind of does like, just stuff you can dance to or whatever. But
yeah, collaborations. So sometimes that'll be, that's a channel in the car. I'll pop that one on. Yeah. Mr. Worldwide.
Boom. And so one more thing before we move on to the next thing. So tell me about this. What's that all about?
That's funny. Well, when you're smoking cigars in a lounge, it's all about communication. But if there's not a typical common American sporting event on TV that we can just put on with the volume down and music playing in the background, we started watching women's pole vaulting. And there's a crew of 12 guys that know everything about every women's pole vaulter worldwide. And it's just bizarre because it's a sport, but it's something that it's nice to watch. So you get to see the scores, what their top heights are. And so that if Ken's been to my lounge before, and I think people, when they first come over there and they see what I put up on the TV and it's women's pole vaulting, but then you start watching, you're like, wow, these athletes are amazing. It's just something that, just seems to work. So little strange, but it works.
Yeah, definitely. And so, last question before we get into all the fun questions. So, you kind of touched on this earlier, but it could be, but you could add more. But what types of beverages do you like to pair with your cigars? It could be alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whatever.
So to be honest, on the coffee pairing thing, we actually did a coffee pairing event with a friend of mine. He owns Haymarket Coffee in Haymarket, Virginia, and we paired his 3 different primary coffees with our 5 cigars, and we did an event where we sat down and we did it ourselves. So 3 of us, my chief tasting officer Ed, and Chris Morin, who owns Haymarket Coffee, and myself, we sat down and we smoked 5 cigars and with 3 different cups of coffee, and we tried to figure out what would pair very well. But the truth is, I didn't have my first coffee with a cigar until I was in the Dominican Republic, and someone was saying that they had had a cigar with their coffee in the morning. I said I'd never had one. So even after 30 years, I had never done it. But I do enjoy a cigar in the morning that pairs well with coffee. I think the Sun Country in my line is probably the best one for that. But normally in the evenings, what I'm drinking is bourbon. I'm a bourbon guy. If I drink scotch, it's going to be a really peaty scotch with a lot, because I like something that's just unique. I'm not a blended scotch fan. I'm an Isla Scotch fan, and it's just something that seems to work really well with my palate. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, I'm drinking bourbon or American whiskey.
Nice. And that's definitely all good. I do a little scotch, and sometimes I do some not bourbon, but some rum. I like bourbon only if I like, mix it or whatever, but I'm not big on, I don't drink a lot like I used to. So, when I do drink, I get it in, and I'm mostly at home when I drink. And so I just kind of, let loose then. But, it's definitely, you definitely got a solid lineup there for pairing. So now we're going to get to the fun questions. I don't have any drum rolls or nothing like that. So this is the fun part of the show, everybody, where you get to see how he's going to answer these fun questions. I just picked some random ones. So let's get started here. If you woke up one day as the opposite sex, what is the first thing you would do?
Wow, is this G-rated show or what is it? I think
we're not regulated by the FCC. You can say whatever you want to.
I think the first thing I would do is stand up in front of a full-length mirror and just look at myself and just admire it. I think that's the first thing.
Definitely. And what personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
Wow, that's a tough one. Got me in the most trouble. Probably just I tend to speak really fast, and sometimes because I'm not thinking as fast as I can talk, I'll say things that I shouldn't have said. So sometimes I'll find myself, pulling myself back a little bit. Like I'll just say something that makes perfect sense to me and is funny to me, but it's not funny to the person that I'm saying it to. So sometimes it's just talking faster than I can think.
Definitely. I do the same thing. I just don't think before I speak half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the most beautiful place that you've ever been?
The most beautiful place I've ever been. So I've always said that the places that stick in your mind the most is not necessarily the place, but who you're with. Or in some cases, is what cigar you're smoking. I'd say the most beautiful place is probably the Italian countryside in North Italy, in Tuscany, particularly. Just driving through and seeing the hill towns off in the distance is just a beautiful piece of the world.
Nice. That's definitely somewhere I want to go to. As I'm always talking about, I'm 75% Irish, 25% Italian. So I definitely got to make it to Italy one day. My dad's been to Ireland before, so I got to make it to both of those countries because I've seen pictures and they're beautiful and all that good stuff. So next up here, what is your favorite cheesy pickup line?
Oh, I've got a great one. So, of course, I'm married and happily married, and I don't use this one anymore. But you'd sit at a nice U-shaped bar where there's people on the other side of the bar looking at you on your side of the bar, and the bartenders are in the middle. And I would ask a bartender to go to a particular girl and ask her if she'd like to buy me a drink. And usually you get a look like what? Like you don't understand how this works. And I'm like, well, do you want to buy me a drink or not? And they, it's usually no. But then in 15 minutes or so, they find their way around the bar and they want to meet this guy who would be so bold as to ask them if they want to buy him a drink. It worked a lot, but it's cheesy, but it worked.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to a guy today at Smoke Rings, and he was telling me about how he basically quit working, and his wife like basically supports him. He's like, yeah, I married a sugar mama and all this, and so that would be him when he was single. Hey, you want to buy me a drink? that was basically his whole goal in life, is to have a sugar mama. Now he does. Now he just hangs out at the cigar shop and plays pool and does nothing.
That's awesome.
So would you rather sleep wearing handcuffs or a bike helmet?
Bike helmet, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't stand to be restricted while I was sleeping, because I'd wake up in a full panic.
Yeah. I mean, you still might be a little restricted wearing a bike helmet, because you wake up like, get this thing off of me. That's how I would. Mm-hmm. But how many days in a row do you wear the same pair of pants before it becomes a problem?
I have far too many jeans, so it's very easy for me to just put on a new pair, and that's really all I wear. It's funny on these trips now when I'm traveling, so we're visiting 20 shops in 12 days, and you're smoking in lounges. I wouldn't put on the same shirt or the same pants in those scenarios, but 2 days would be the max in any situation. Like if I were just at home and threw on some jeans but hung out in the house all day, I might wear those jeans the next day. But after that, they're standing up on their own. I'm not going to put them on.
Definitely. And so what movie sequel do you wish they would erase from history?
The third Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. There's some sequels that's just too much, especially if they use different actors, and yeah, I definitely agree with that. What's the one food you can never bring yourself to eat?
Oh, wow. When I was a kid, we had to eat everything that was served. You had to eat 2 tablespoons of it. But once a year on your birthday, you could pick one thing you didn't have to eat for the whole year. So whenever it was served, you didn't have to touch it. And mine was always lima beans.
Oh, wow.
But I have a very open palate. I mean, I'll try anything. Whenever we go to, we travel internationally a lot just to expose the kids to the world. And I'll eat whatever. I'll eat the weirdest thing on the menu just to try it.
Hey. That's the way to be. I think one time when I was at church camp when I was a teenager, I ate cat food with worms on it, like for fear factor. That was nasty.
I've never done that.
0 out of 10 would not recommend. So if you had to live in a different state, what would it be?
In a different country?
In a different state.
Oh, a different state. Wow, I just got back from Dallas. That place is amazing. I've never been to Texas. But if I had to live in a different state, I'd probably be boring and just say, North Carolina on the coast.
I'm sure that would be nice, though.
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice, but I've been there before. And when I don't eat the same thing at the same restaurant every time I go there. I eat different stuff all the time. And the same way with travel, I don't like going to the same place all the time. So it would just be complicated to say, oh, I'd love to live in Colorado because it sounds so nice, but I've never been there. So it'd be kind of a risk for me to say, I'll go there. But Colorado sounds amazing.
Yeah, my dad could tell you all about Colorado because he used to live there a long time ago. I think he was stationed out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could tell you all about Colorado. So, what songs have you completely memorized?
Oh, wow. Well, probably the one that's going to be the funniest or the most
Don't
unexpected.
fall, Grandma. Sorry, my grandma just got home and she was ducking underneath the garage door. Sorry about that.
The one that would surprise the most people is I've won a lot of karaoke contests, and I win because I sing a bunch of country songs in a row, and then I close when it gets to the semifinals and the finals. I close with Genuine singing The Bachelor.
Oh, nice! I'm surprised. I thought you were gonna sing the song "Pony" or No Differences. My whole life has changed.
Okay, so the song is called Pony. It's not called Bachelor, but it opens with "I'm just a bachelor." So that's the song. The song is Pony. So I know that one by heart, and I can win karaoke with that song every time because nobody expects this old white guy to sing that song with so much soul.
Once we meet one day, I'm gonna definitely have. I got to see this for myself. Like it's on record right here. I got to see this for myself. So we just got 2 more, and then we'll be done here. So if you were the only human left on Earth, what would you do?
Wow, I think I would just start going to all of the closed liquor stores and cigar stores, building myself a nice hoard, and then settling in to the biggest, nicest house I could possibly find with a pool.
Not a bad way to spend it, and no one can stop you.
No one can stop me. I'm just going to take all the best cigars and all the best whiskey and bourbon and scotch, and then just find myself a house somewhere and figure out how to fire up a generator and get my refrigerator going so I can have an ice ball, and I'll be good to go.
Definitely. And lastly here, so what's the funniest joke you've ever heard?
Wow. I tell a joke about a 3-legged pig, and that's probably the funniest joke that I've ever heard, because I keep telling it and everybody always laughs.
Well, let's hear it just to close out the show right.
All right, so this guy he's working in an office. It's his first office job. He's a young guy. He's 19 years old, and he's working with this older guy who's a program manager. And this program manager always dresses in flannel shirts, and he's got a country accent. And they get close to each other over a period of a couple months. And this program manager decides to invite the kid over to his farm. He's like, I want to show you my farm and show you where I live. So he invites the kid over. The kid goes there, and he starts giving him a tour of the farm. So they go into this one barn, and in this barn, he's got all these separate pens on the right and separate pens on the left, and they're all filled with different animals. So there's like, a peacock, and there's a couple chickens, and there's a goat, and a sheep, and a horse, and a cow. And in one of these pens, there's a pig, and the pig's only got 3 legs. So the boy says, all these animals are great. He says, but what's the deal with the pig with the 3 legs? And he goes, that pig is the most amazing pig in the world. It actually saved my son's life. And I said, really? The kid said, really? How did it save the son's life? And he said, well, my son decided in the winter, the pond had a little bit of ice on it. He was going to walk out in the pond. He crashed through the ice, and he was drowning. And that pig ran up to the house, crashed through the door, alerted us by just squealing and squealing until we finally followed it down to the pond, and we were able to pull my son out to safety. So, and the boy's like, wow, that's amazing. He said, but why has it only got 3 legs? He goes, that pig, not only did he save my son's life, but he also saved every animal in this barn. Like, well, how did he save all the animals in the barn? He said, well, one night, late at night, the barn caught fire. There was an electrical short. Everything started to burn. The pig broke free first, ran through the front door, woke us up. We came outside. The barn was on fire. We were able to go in, open up all the cages, get all the animals out. He saved them all. And he goes, yeah, but why has he only got 3 legs? And the farmer looks at him. He says, a pig that's that amazing, you don't want to eat all at once.
Now that's hilarious.
That's a good one. I normally make it much longer. Like I make people wait through like 3 or 4 different rescues the pig does, but
yeah,
that's a solid one.
Yeah, no, that was good, man. Hey, we're at the end of the show, man. I really appreciate you for coming on, and I appreciate you for the care package. And this Midnight Bender is awesome. Still got quite a bit left too, so I will be finishing that as I'm just chilling and hanging out with my dad. Everybody out there that's tuned in tonight, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Herf Zone Live. Remember that now it's back to exclusively being on YouTube. I have a good amount of subscribers on YouTube now, so it's just to keep the momentum going to get more and more subscribers, and you have to come exclusively here to watch the show. Next week we have Matt Booth. It's not going to be a serious interview. It's going to be hilarious. It's going to be probably X-rated, and it's going to be funny. So make sure you tune in. Matt Booth said that we're going to circle up and I have a great show next week. So yeah, if you watch it and you have not already subscribed and you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and all that good stuff. And you guys have a good night. And Greg, I'll let you know when I'm off of being live and we can talk some real shit.